Hello and welcome to Window on the World, a show where we highlight MSSU students and faculty members who have had the opportunity to travel abroad and are willing to share some of their experiences with us. I'm your host, Alecia Henson, and today I will be interviewing MSSU students and faculty members who recently took a trip to Ghana. Thank you for being on the show. Now, first off, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves, what your major is, and what your future career plans are.
All right, my name's John Nguyen. I'm an accounting major. I'm in my last year of studies here at Missouri Southern, and as far as future plans go, I hope to, before I graduate, at least secure an internship for myself and hopefully use that to just get into an accounting firm or a company that needs my skills and expertise and just work my way up from there.
Okay, very good. And for you?
I'm an international business major and a senior as well. Whenever I'm done at Southern, I hope to work for a corporation doing the international business sector, or as I've been thinking as well, to going into getting a master's abroad, hopefully in Europe. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yes.
I know you're actually a faculty member.
That's right.
So,
I'm Dr. Nii Adote Abrahams, professor of economics. I'm in the School of Business. I've been at Missouri Southern for this. I just finished my 17th year. That's a long time. So.
okay. And could you describe to us where exactly Ghana is? I know you're from there, so could you describe, like on a map, where exactly Ghana is located at?
Well, if you look at the map of Africa, Ghana is on the west coast of Africa, on the Gulf. If you look at where the equator and the meridian kind of line up, or they meet, Ghana lies just a little bit above it, and it's right on the west coast of Africa, what we call the Gulf of Guinea, and that's where Ghana is.
And you grew up there, so what led you here to Missouri?
Well, yes, I did grow up in Ghana, did my undergraduate studies in Ghana, came to the United States in 1990, came to graduate school, went to University of Massachusetts, then to Penn State, and then got a job at Missouri Southern in 1999, and that's why I ended up here.
Gotcha, okay. And what exactly was the purpose of this trip that you took to Ghana? What were students supposed to kind of take away from it?
Well, we've every year we've done a study abroad trip. One of the requirements for international business majors is that they have to do a study abroad trip, either a 2-week trip or go on a full, maybe semester-long study abroad trip. We've done trips to Asia, to Europe. Some of our students have gone down to Japan, to South America. We've never done one to Africa, and I've always wanted to do one, just to give students a different perspective, because when you go to Europe, it's almost the same as the United States. There's not that much of a difference. I mean, there are cultural differences, but I've always wanted to do one to Ghana, to give our students a different perspective of how business is done somewhere else other than in the West. Ghana is being known to be, is currently supposed to be an emerging economy. Mm-hmm. The World Bank is really high on Ghana right now. We've had a stable democracy, or Ghana has had a stable democracy since 1992. Mm-hmm. So it's been stable. There's been a couple of changes of government. So I wanted our students to experience what an emerging democracy looks like, what an emerging economy looks like, and then kind of contrast that with what goes on in the United States. So for them to come away with how business is done somewhere else in the world, what are the obstacles to doing mm-hmm. business in countries that are emerging without the institutions that the United States has mm-hmm. or the West has, and then let them figure out for themselves, what are the pros and cons of doing that.
Okay, so the trip was basically just focusing on economies that haven't been around and haven't been steady for very long, where, like here in the United States, we've kind of had a steady economy for a long time. You mentioned 1992 for Ghana?
Well, 1992 is when we went to a constitutionally elected government. So with that came some stability that allowed international businesses to have the confidence to go in. And with the constitutional government, you have the rule of law, you have courts that are functioning, you have a well-functioning financial market. So now businesses are beginning to go in there because they know that when they go in, then they establish a business, they can get the profits that they need out of the businesses. So the stability in the economy, the stability in government is what kind of led me to, let's go look at this and see what the beginnings of a stable government looks like as it grows, as the economy grows. With stability in government, stability in the economy.
Okay. And how many students were able to go on this trip? And when were you able to go?
There were 10 students. 9 of them were business majors. We had 1 international studies major. And the trip was from May the 17th through May 30th.
Yeah.
30th. They came back, you landed back in the States not the first, but it was a 12-day trip with 2 days of travel. So 14-day trip, 2 days of travel, 12 days in country.
Gotcha. Okay. And what made you want to go on this trip to Ghana?
I mean, there are multiple reasons for why I wanted to go. And I was kind of actually the odd man out because I was the only accounting major there, whereas the trip was primarily focused on like the international side of things. Although there was one one visit that we made to an accounting firm working in Ghana, so that was nice. But for me, this was one of the few trips that was relevant to my degree. Like it had a business kind of context to it, and so that's why I kind of chose this trip. Another reason why was because it just seemed kind of different from the other trips. Like Dr. Abrahams was saying earlier about how there were just so few trips going into Ghana. I mean, Africa as a whole, actually. And so that just kind of stood out to me. And I kind of wanted to see for myself what was in Africa, specifically Ghana, that made it kind of special in a way.
Okay, and had you ever traveled internationally before?
My family and I were planning to at one point because my family's from Vietnam. And so that was supposed to be our first trip out of the country, but it just didn't work out for us financially. The financial reasons were because of that. And so this was actually my first trip out of the country. So.
Okay, very cool. And for you, what made you want to take this trip to Ghana?
I had already studied abroad before for a semester in Switzerland, and it was an amazing trip, but I saw or heard about this trip from Dr. Moose, and it sounded like a great opportunity because it was to a developing country. I felt like it'd be more of a culture shock, which I really did want to experience, so that's why I chose to go.
Gotcha. And he mentioned that you guys visited an accounting firm. What were some of the other businesses you were able to visit while you were there?
We went to a lot of banks, a few accounting firms, development banks. We went and visited a school, which was a really amazing experience. We made some donations while we were there for that and got to spend time with the children.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yes.
We also stopped by a couple of factories, like the Nestle factory working in Ghana. We stopped by the port of Tema, which was really cool because we got to see all these ships just anchored out in the distance waiting to come in and like export and import goods and so on and so forth. Just watching all the people just doing their jobs and how the ports operate and things like that. So we got to see some of that too.
Gotcha. Did you have a favorite business you got to visit?
Well, I guess for me, and a lot of people didn't like it because, of the accounting thing, but the visit to Ernst & Young in the Ernst & Young building in Ghana, that was really cool. I didn't really show it at the time, but I mean, I was kind of excited because going into this trip, we all had to do some independent research of our own on a certain topic. And for me, that relates to Ghana or Africa in a way. And for me, it was the history of accounting in Ghana. And so just going into the Ernst & Young presentation and asking the accountants there, like, some things from my paper, like talking about them on the topics that I researched and seeing what they had to say about it, how they experienced all the events that went on that I researched. That was really insightful for me.
Getting to see what you researched just kind of made it more real.
Yeah.
How about you? Did you have a favorite place you visited?
Probably the Royal Bank. That was really interesting. They went over a lot of the business on how they have so many struggles just due to the infrastructure, which is something I feel like we take for granted here. Just things such as roads, street signs, how not having those really can affect an economy. It was really interesting to see that and hear from them firsthand.
Okay, so how would you describe in further detail kind of how Ghana's economy compares to here in America from what you learned from there?
A lot of it was just the infrastructure and the ability to get loans, things like that, the things we take for granted, they really struggle with. Just how, like they were saying, they even wanted to be able to get factories like China does and be able to grow from there. But because their roads are so bad and they don't even have street signs to find the addresses for people to find them, these companies won't come there, which helps or keeps them from growing.
Limits their marketing because
Yes.
of just the way their whole cities are structured. Gotcha. And for you, what were some lessons you learned from your trip to Ghana?
It was kind of special for me because not only was I comparing my experience in Ghana, like with the people especially and how the culture is there and stuff, with American culture, but I also compared it to how the Vietnamese people do things, at least in America. And it was really interesting for me because I saw a lot of similarities, like not only in the food, which was really good for me because I had no problems with the cuisine there, but also like how, like in my point of view, the Vietnamese people and the Ghanaian people share the same kind of feeling of collectiveness, like family bonds and stuff like that, and their efforts to keep that together and preserve that. Like I thought that was really cool. Just witnessing that and tying those two cultures together, and that was for me pretty interesting.
Okay. And did you guys also participate in a service learning project while you were there?
Yes, we went to a school that you knew the preacher who started the school, is that correct?
I'm trying to remember the name of the town, but it escaped me. It escaped me. Yeah, but go ahead.
Oh, that's okay.
It was really amazing seeing how the school was set up. It was basically just the cement flooring and then an awning over it. And that was their school. They had nowhere to store anything. They had just 4 blackboards. And I think, 180 children? Oh, almost 180 children with 4 teachers, and they all volunteered.
4 teachers? And this is for various ages too, or were those 180 students of similar ages as well?
They were, it seemed like all the way from the age of 2 on to 10.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the little ones, like 5-year-olds, were taking care of the babies. And it was amazing because without that school having started, those kids were just wandering around because their parents had to go to work.
Right.
And it's just a really humbling experience to see that how, like, we take education for granted so much. And these kids were so happy to just have a school to go to, even though, like, they only have 4 teachers and they didn't even have a building. They were so happy. We brought them some supplies and things and, like, a few balls, and those kids were so excited or so ecstatic to just have a few balls to play with, and they all shared, and it was a really great experience.
That service project came about. I was back in Ghana earlier in the year, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was talking about wanting to do a service project with the students so that they would go out and not just come enjoy the country, but also give something back, which is something that we stress a lot, volunteerism here. So this friend of mine who we went to high school together, he had visited this village, and it's about 5 villages where there was no school, nothing, and kids were just running around. So he decided to start a school. So he started the school, and it's just a cement floor with an awning. They've divided up, into 5 or 6 classrooms, and they're all sitting around it. But then he sent me a list of some of the things that they needed. And Dr. Grosbeck, the former dean of the School of Business, was gracious enough. He and his wife and their church did a fundraising. Brittany was kind enough. She works down at her place of work. They were kind enough to donate quite a few things. And we ended up with quite a handsome, a good-looking bag of stuff. Just school supplies, pencils, crayons, sharpeners, pens, paper, all kinds of things. And then we also had some soccer balls and beach balls that we give to the students. And They did all the work, and it was just amazing. I thought that was probably the fun, the most. I mean, it was great. It was probably the most fun part. When we got there, we were all tired. I think we had spent the whole day doing something else at the port, and then we went over there, and the tiredness just left. I mean, it was amazing. It was an amazing time with those kids, and just to see the excitement of their faces when they saw that, and we happened to get a whole basket full of fresh pineapples to take with us. That was
Gotta love pineapple. Yeah,
that was very good. That was very good.
So you notice a lot of cultural differences between Ghana and here in America, just the way the school systems are set up even.
Yes, definitely.
Were there any other major differences you can think of?
There's so many.
Like maybe how like the people
People are so friendly and nice.
That too, and like the first day we landed in Ghana, that was we took a bus ride to the place where we would be staying at for pretty much that whole duration of the trip. And along the way, you just saw people kind of out on the streets trying to make a living too, just going out there and just kind of trying to sell you stuff. And things like that. And so seeing that it reminded me a lot of the stories my dad would tell me from Vietnam, That's it was a little heart-wrenching too in a way, but also just humbling in a way, just seeing that as opposed to here. It was just a lot more prevalent in like the deeper city areas.
Right.
And so seeing that made me really think like, wow, we do sometimes take a lot for granted, because not only are they out there trying to make a living, but also, it's either really hot or like just pouring. It's never really one or the other. That I found while I was there, that and like the roads are some of the roads there aren't any roads.
Right.
And then just, I don't know, just seeing that made me really
appreciate what you have here.
Yeah,
with
definitely.
Roads and AC and not struggling so much maybe to survive as some do there, especially with medicine and everything. Okay, well, I know we have some pictures from your trip, so we're going to take a look at those right now. You guys can kind of describe what we're seeing.
Yeah.
And we've got a building.
That's the port that we went to, one of the ports, the port of Tema. I think that's kind of like the security checkpoint or something where we walked through and then got to see the port, like the actual port itself.
The port of Tema is the main entry point for any exports or imports into the country. So one of the things we wanted to do on the trip was for our students to go see how that occurs, because in one of the international business classes, they talk about freight and about importing and exporting. And this, the visit to the port of Tema was for them to see, how things get done at the port. So
Okay.
that's the port.
Gotcha.
Great. 3 of us had just taken the business logistics class last semester, so it was perfect timing to go and see how that really works in person.
Seeing it live instead of just reading about it in a book.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum.
Yep.
The first president of Ghana.
Okay, so it's kind of like a monument in his memory.
Yes.
Okay. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, there's a little museum back there too, kind of where we were given a pretty small tour of, and a lot of his belongings and just personal effects were there.
Right.
And so we got to know a little bit about each and every item there too.
Okay.
Which one is this?
That's the Nestle factory.
Oh, that's Nestle.
Yeah.
Okay. So Nestle has a huge factory in Ghana. They make they make cocoa.
This product.
Just
all
kinds of things, and they give
Milk,
it
baby formula.
baby formula, all kinds of things, and they give us a wonderful tour of the place. And one of the interesting things about what we did with this trip was split we did the financial sector, and then we also did manufacturing. So the idea was for the students to be able to see that when you end up working in the manufacturing sector, you're a business guy or an accounting mate in the office. There's a whole side that goes on this, in terms of the manufacturing, that goes on behind the scene, and it's important for students to understand what goes on in terms of the manufacturing to be able to understand the financials of the company. So Nestle was a great trip. They gave us a tour around the factory, saw how things worked. They even talked about some of the challenges that they face. I think at one point, one of the guys was talking about the fact that they actually have to plan 6 months ahead, so far ahead,
because of like how slow materials were coming in.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And it's different. I mean, the United States, you order something on Amazon, it's in your house in 2 days. But when you have to order something, it takes 6 months to get in. Within that time, demand could change. And if the demand for the product changes within that time, then what do you do? And those are some of the challenges that they face over there.
So you just got to see kind of what it takes to run a factory and just what goes on with businesses there. Gotcha. Okay.
That's the Bank of Ghana.
Okay.
The front. Before we walked into like 2 security checkpoints, I think.
Yeah. So that's the Central Bank of Ghana, which is responsible for conducting all monetary policy in Ghana. I think this was probably the least favorite part of the trip for the students, but Dr. Musa and myself really enjoyed it because we got to talk monetary policy with them. But that was for the students to understand what monetary policy does.
Okay.
It's
And that's a group
a
photo?
group picture when we were about to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you nervous for your flight at all?
Not really.
Not really.
No.
You'd been on one before, you're like, I got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just slept.
That's good.
Royal Bank.
Oh yeah, the Royal Bank. That was a really good trip.
That was like the first thing we did while in Ghana. Like, I think the very first visit we made.
Yes.
Yeah, and that kind of set the tone for all the other bank visits, because we visited maybe 4 or 5 different banks, and we'd compare each one to the Royal Bank because of how good.
It set the mark.
Oh yes.
And it set it pretty high because
the
people there were amazing. Like, they really made us feel welcome, and they had everything like so planned out, the presentation, the refreshments too, and just made us feel just so right at home there.
Just welcomed.
Yeah.
And so that picture, he was showing you a PowerPoint kind of describing how their bank works.
Right. He was giving that gentleman there was also a high school classmate of mine. We actually went through primary school with him. We did primary school and high school together, and he was gracious enough to host us, and they did a fantastic job. I mean, they did. We call him Sir John, but that's his nickname. But he did a fantastic job. So.
Just a great learning experience.
Really, really great.
And this is another picture kind of behind the scenes where you're learning.
This is Ernst & Young.
Yeah, Ernst & Young. My kind of favorite business part of the trip. Yeah, that's where we got to learn about just what I talked about earlier, the whole behind the scenes thing on how accounting works in Ghana, and what Ernst & Young did themselves to kind of just stay in the, I guess, accounting market or whatever, just by adapting to those changes, because there are a lot of just things that happened recently, like I guess in the past 10 or 20 years that really shaped how accounting worked in Ghana. They adopted a whole new set of international reporting standards just in 2007, I believe, and just big events like that.
So they've undergone a lot of changes with their accounting and how they want to work. And so that was interesting learning about that.
Yeah, so that's what Ernst & Young mainly was.
Okay, gotcha.
This was the African Development Bank.
Yes, that was a really interesting one as well. And just she was going on about all the issues they had while they were trying to work things out, and how education is one of the things they push so much. But it was interesting because she was saying even when a lot of people do get the education, they leave and they don't come back, which...
Don't look at me. Why are you looking at me? Why are you looking at me?
I didn't mean to. But that was really interesting.
That's funny.
That was one of the visits we made too, where infrastructure was talked about a lot. Like, with the whole roads and electricity being pushed out to certain areas too, and just problems with how that works. That was, I think that was a point of discussion for like a really long time, just because one of the main objectives, I think now of the African Development Bank is to make sure, that gets improved in any way, shape, or form, just because those problems kind of for me, that was an underlying problem for a lot of the things we saw in Ghana, just because, water's scarce, electricity turns on and off at just random moments in time every day, which, we had a lot of fun just because, the AC would turn off and the place where we were staying, and, to us it was a pretty big nuisance, but the people in Ghana,
they're used to it.
They're used to it, and, it really amazes me how tough people can be. But when you go through that for however long you're going through that, I mean,
makes you very strong.
Yeah, resilient.
Right.
And I must say, our students were troopers. We have some great ambassadors. Our students, they represented Missouri Southern admirably. They were wonderful. Things were not exactly, like they are in Missouri, but there was not a single complaint. If there was, I didn't hear about it. But they didn't complain. They were troopers. They rolled with whatever came. When water is trickling down from the shower, you have to take a shower, and nobody complained. They were great. They were an awesome. This was a great group of students to travel with.
Well, that's
awesome.
awesome.
Group of students to travel with.
MSSU has a lot of students who study abroad internationally. Do you have any advice for those students who are thinking about doing it?
Just do it.
Just do it.
It's so worth it, and if you financially can't afford it, the financial aid office here is really great, and they'll help you any way they can. The professors will as well do anything they can to help you, and it's a life-changing experience, and you'll have those memories for the rest of your life.
For you, any advice for students?
Make sure you double check what you're packing. Triple check, quadruple check, because you'll always forget something for sure. Because I know I forgot a couple things.
Yeah.
And you better hope wherever you're going has like a supermarket kind of area or something. And we were fortunate enough to where we were pretty close by to like a Walmart type store. So just make sure you know what you're packing. And
Right. Okay. And so the cost is definitely worth it.
I think so,
For sure.
yes.
Because a lot of students shy away because they're like, well, I don't know if I can afford this, and
Yeah.
what if I get there and I don't even like it?
Yeah, and I have so many friends who have graduated already, and they wish they would have done it and look back and just regret it. It's one of those things. Whenever I decided to originally do it, I was like, I had been wanting to do it so badly, and I was like, I'm not going to regret this. I'm just going to go.
Right.
Happy I did. So.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed hearing some of your experiences of Ghana. It sounds like you learned a lot, and it was a very humbling experience for you. So we wish you guys the best in your future careers. And thank you so much for being on this episode of Window on the World. I'm your host, Alecia Henson. We'll see you next time.